Hello everyone and welcome back to part 2 of this series. In this video, we will be creating the swipe mechanism as well as the scoring mechanism. First, in the last tutorial, I forgot to change the default map to our custom map here. So let's go to File, Edit, Project Settings, Maps and Modes, and change the editor startup and game default map to our unlimited time map. Okay, now we want to create the swiping mechanism. So to swipe, let me just get this. To swipe, we have to click on the ball and swipe in a direction, right? So how to do it? We need to detect clicks, touch events whenever this ball is touched, and we need to detect touch events whenever this ball is released. Okay, so to do it, we need to go into our ball class and override a function that allows us to detect touch whenever the mesh is touched. So view function void on touch begin, and then take parameters e touch index type finger index. Okay, and the second parameter is the u primitive component touch component. That's it. And the u function, another one for the, let's copy paste it here, for the touch input. Okay, or just touch end. Now, so what happens when we touch the ball? First thing we need is to cache a reference to this ball, to the ball that is being touched. Okay, and then we need to get the initial ball location where it is. So here we get here. Okay, and why do we get this? Because later on we need it to calculate the direction it's being swiped towards. Okay, so to get the player controller, we need the player controller to actually get the touch location, the initial touch location. So to get it, let's go to ball header and create a player controller. And now in the begin play, but first include the functions library. Now in the begin play, let's make a u word equal get word. Now if word player controller is equal to u functions library get player controller word. Okay, now here if player controller or first let's store a reference to this ball, but we need to store it somewhere that is persistent. And what I mean by this is whenever as long as we are running the game, this cached reference is always valid unless we invalidate it later on. So we can't do this in the ball because the ball will be destroyed. Maybe there's a chance that it might get destroyed, right? So we need to do it somewhere like inside the game mode. So let's create a interface for the game mode. Let's go here, C++, create a new interface for the game mode. Let's call it game mode interface. Okay, our game mode interface is created. So let's go here and create a function that sets the touched ball reference. So virtual void set touched ball, and take parameters the actual touched ball. Okay. Oops. Let's forward declare the ball class. So class a ball. Okay, now let's go into our game mode and include this interface. So include, and let's inherit it. So there we go. Now let's override the function. Virtual void set touched ball. Okay, now class a ball. And then here we need to create a variable a ball touched ball. And here let's override this and or let's create a definition for it. Here touched ball is equal to new touched ball. Okay, now inside our ball here, let's delete this. We need to get our game mode interface. Okay, and to do that, we need to create a function inside our functions library that is similar to this one. Okay, so let's go to our functions library and create a new function here. Static I game mode interface get game mode interface and same parameter. And let's declare it here. Great. Okay, so if it's like here, we need to copy paste this here. Then view word is equal to G engine get word from context object checked this one. Okay, word context object. So if no word, return null. Include the game mode here. Include game framework game mode base. Now a game mode base game mode equal word so if no game mode return null. Then if we got the game mode and it implements the interface, new game mode interface, we return it. So return cast I game mode interface, and the object is game mode. Now we need to include the header here for the game mode interface. So include game mode interface. Okay. So this function here, so we are getting this get word from context object is it returns obtain a word object pointer from an object with from an object which has a word context. Okay, so this word context, we are basically getting a pointer for the word within this word context object using this function. And the reason why we need this word is to get the game mode for it. Okay, and why do we need the game mode inside this word? Because we need to cast to the game mode interface, and the cast object is this game mode. So it's similar. Let me show you in Blueprint. If you are familiar in Blueprint, this is similar. This line here, the cast, is similar to get game mode and cast to, let's say, game mode or whatever. Okay, this is the object. Okay, this one, it's similar to this one. Yes. Okay. Now we can go back here. Here we need to create a game mode interface variable to store reference. So that's a game mode interface. We can do it inside the protective. So game mode interface. Nice. Okay. Now here in the begin play, if we have the word game mode interface equal new function get game mode interface word. Awesome. Now here in the touch begin, if game mode interface is equal to the header set touched word. It's okay. Now we have stored a reference to the board that is being touched. Then if player controller so as I said earlier, we need to get the touch location, the initial touch location on the screen. So player controller get input touch state, and the finger index is this finger index here. So finger index. Now, as you can see, the location is passed as reference. So to actually store the location and the x and y location, we need to create here local variables. So double touch x and double touch y, and we need to do the same for a boolean, but not now. Let's now just type here touch x, touch y, and the boolean as well is passed as reference. You see this and here, this means it's passed as reference. So we need to create variables to store these, the return value of these inside this these variables. Okay, so now we need a boolean b is touching, and we need to tell it here. Okay, then let me show you in the blueprint what this function does. Maybe you'll understand it here more. So get player controller. So this is this. Then get input touch state. So the finger index is here. We are passing it as we are passing the parameter of this function for it. Great. Now the touch location x and y, we are creating a variable and storing inside of this variable, same as we are doing here. Touch x, location x, and location y. This is the same. Okay. So creating here, because it's passed by reference, so creating these here will be storing the output of this function. Okay, the same as here, and for this one as well. Great. Okay. Then we need to set the pole location. Okay, so let's go here and create here in the private vector 2D f vector 2D, yeah, initial ball initial or touch initial location is equal to nothing. Here touch initial location is equal to f vector 2D, and for the x, because it's 2D, so it's only x and y, and for the x, touch x, and for the y, touch y. Now we are storing the initial touch location. Okay. Next, on touch end, we need to not launch the ball actually. We need to set the touched ball reference to null. We need to invalidate it. And why I'm doing this? Because the touch end doesn't actually mean the ball was launched. Because let me show you here real quick. So let's override these two, the ones we are working with, begin and end. So on begin, let's print a string touch began. Let's make it green, and here touch ended. Let's make it red. Okay, let's start. Now if we touch the ball, we get touch began. So what happened now? I clicked one click. Okay, now let's try to hold, click and hold. You see, I'm holding now, so it only printed touch began. Now if I release in here anywhere else, the touch ended will not be called, and that's because the touch ended was called outside this ball bounds. So if I click here and I release inside this ball, it will call. But if we release outside here, it will not call. So this means this will not work if you want to swipe the ball up, because when we swipe, we will be releasing the ball, releasing the touch outside this ball, outside the bounds of this mesh here. Okay, so this will not work because the touch ended will not be called. It's only called when we are ending the touch within the bound limits. Okay, so um, now why do we need to set this game mode interface the touch ball to null? Because well, we are not touching it anymore and we didn't launch it, so we need to invalidate it. So if game mode interface set touch ball null ptr. Awesome. Now we may be wondering now how will we swipe the ball if this touch end doesn't work? Well, to answer your question, we will be using the player controller class and override a function from this class. Let me show you the function. I don't know if you can get it from here or input touch. Yeah, this one. We will be overriding this function inside our player controller. And inside our player controller, this function means wherever you release on the screen, or wherever you press on the screen, or wherever you move on the screen. It doesn't matter if you are clicking here, 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 wherever. Okay, so we need to override it inside our player controller. Let's go to our player controller. Player controller, and inside the header, we need to override it. So inside our private, let's go for void on touch released, e touch index, type finger index, and f vector location. Okay. Now here, we need to get a reference to the touched ball. So to do that, we need a game interface. So let's go here. Sorry, game mode interface. Let's go here. Game mode interface. Okay, and here we need to include the functions library. So here, your word, or we don't need it, just don't need it. Let's go for game mode interface equal u functions library get game mode interface and get word. We don't really need to create a variable because we only will using this get word once, so it's the same if you think about it. Okay, now if game mode interface a ball touched ball, we are creating a variable for the touched ball. Let's include its header first. Ball h. So touched ball is equal game mode interface interface get touched. Oh, we didn't create this function yet. Let's go to our game mode interface. Virtual a ball get touched ball. Let's go to our current game mode. Virtual void override return touch ball. Okay, get touched ball. Now if it's valid, first we need to get a so we need to get also the same as we did here. Where is it? Here, the same what we did here, but in here. So it will get us the release location. So my mouse is here. Let's say I released here. It will get us this location. Okay, then we can based on this and based on the initial location, we can calculate the direction. So here, double touch and X, touch and Y, and the boolean is touch pressed. So get input touch state finger index touch and X, touch and Y, and PS touch next. What is happening? Now we need a vector touch and location is equal to F vector touch. Oops, that's 2D here. And X touch and Y. Then we need to touch ball. We need to launch the ball. Okay, and we need to invalidate it. So set touched ball null PTR. Now here we don't have this function, so let's go create it. And let's go to our ball header. Inside the public, void launch ball. Okay. First, we need to get the swipe direction. So swipe direction. And to get it, we need to get the end location. Okay, so let's say here, we end it here. We need to extract it from the start location. So it's touch end location minus touch start location. And to get the touch end location, we can actually pass it as a parameter. So f vector to the touch and location. Let's copy paste this here. And touch and location minus touch initial location. And we need a float swipe strength. This will hold how strong the swipe was. So swipe direction dot size. Okay. Now we need a vector, 3D vector. We need to call it impulse because that will be responsible for the impulse, for the function impulse at impulse. Okay, so f vector impulse is impulse.x is equal to swipe direction.x impulse.y is equal to swipe direction.y and impulse dot z is equal to, well, um, this is optional, you don't have to do this, but I will be clamping the z strength of this swipe. Okay, I will clamp it, I will tell you why in a second. So swipe strength between 0 and 1000. Then ball mesh, add impulse, f factor impulse dot get absolute dot x and impulse dot y and impulse dot get abs dot z. Oh, sorry. It's now here. F name is name underscore none and true to override the velocity. Okay. Now let me explain. This may sound a lot for you right now. Let me explain. So we are getting the swipe direction by extracting the end location and the start location of the touch. Then the swipe strength is equal to swipe direction, the size, the length, or the magnitude of this vector. So by this we mean how strong the touch was. So if I do this, the touch wasn't strong enough. But if I do this like this, the touch will be, the size of the touch will be big. Okay, this will be, the force will be big, so it will be launched. You get the point. Okay. Then the impulse, the x we are setting the swipe direction, and for the y as well. But for the z, we are clamping the strength because we don't want it to be, well, that's optional, but for me, I don't want it to be higher than 1000 because 1000 is already a lot. Okay, I don't want it to get over it, but you could just, if you don't want this clamp, you could just do swipe direction dot z. Okay, great. And then we are adding the impulse for the ball, and the impulse vector is this impulse here, but however on the x and on the z we are calling the get absolute, which means if the player swipe in the opposite direction, swipe towards us like so over here, the get absolute will make get positive. So this is negative. Is if you swipe behind, the ball will go behind, but get absolute will prevent this, and it will make the minus value positive, and the ball will go forward even if the player swipe it behind. This is also optional, but I find it more clean this way. Okay, but this is optional. You could just add the impulse here. Instead of all of this, you could just add the impulse. Okay, but for the y, we don't want it to get absolute because if you swipe here, this is minus. Well, if we have it get absolute, if we swipe here, the ball will go here. Okay, and that won't, that doesn't make sense. We just want it on this axis and on the z axis. Okay, now let's go back here, and here let's call this vector. Okay, now we need to bind these. Before we need also here to bind. We need to bind this, okay? Because right now it doesn't work. So to bind it, we need to go back to our header and override a function that we already have in our parent brain controller. It is virtual void setup input component override. Okay. Now input component, let's bind touch, and the key event is IE underscore released. Okay, so when it's released, not when pressed or moved, just released. Okay, so a basketball player controller on released, we need to call the on touch released function. Okay, now we are done here. Next, in our ball header, in the begin play, if ball mesh on input dot begin dot add dynamic, this touch begin, and we need to do the same for touch end. So touch ended, touch end, not ended. Okay, and here touch end. Now it should work if we compile, hopefully. Oh, we forgot. Okay, so here, if we don't have a word context object, we return null pointer. And if we don't have a word, we return null pointer. And if no game mode, we return null pointer. And if we get the game mode and it does implement the game mode interface, we return the interface. However, if this is not met, we are not returning anything and it's false. So we need to return here null ptr. Now the error should be gone. Great, okay, let's test it out. And it's not working. I think because, let me try something. I will try to exit the project and then launch it again. Okay, so let's press Ctrl F5 here, or we can go to debug to build. No, debug and start without debugging. Yeah, it's working. I don't know why, but sometimes the C++ code doesn't just compile from here. We have to launch it again from the editor, from the Visual Studio. Anyway, let's try it. Now, if we swipe towards the center and it's not working, it looks like X and Y are inverted for some reason. Mm, I think because we have this inverted to 90 degrees. I'm not sure, but let's try. Where is it? Let's go to a player controller. No, no, it's in here somewhere. Launch ball, launch ball. Here. Let's try to swipe uh, swipe these two. So impulse x is equal to swipe direction dot y. Okay, and impulse y is equal to swipe direction dot x. Let's try it now. Now if we swipe, yeah, I think it's working. Yeah. Okay. So now if we swipe behind, it should go forward because we have the get apps. Okay. So yeah, yeah, it's working as intended, I guess. Yeah. Okay. So if we try to take it behind, it will go forward. Okay. And I noticed the Z direction is a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit weak, if you want, we may say. Um, let's here, when you clamp it, let's multiply it by a little value, maybe 1.2. Let's try now. Yeah, it's so much better. I think it's better this way. But the ball is not entering the hoop because, well, the collision by default is very weird. So let's go and change it. Let's go to the hoop static mesh and double click on it and show simple collision. You see this is all causing the ball to be blocked. This shouldn't be here at all. So let's delete all the simple collision, delete everything, okay, and go now it has no collision. Let's go to collision complexity and change the use complex collision and simple. Okay, and we need to do the same for the ball. Let's change this here. Let's show the simple collision. And as you can see, the collision here is not 100% a circle. It's very weird looking. So let's delete this and go to collision and add sphere collision. Okay, now you see it's perfectly square, circled. And here we just keep it project default because complex collision doesn't actually work with actors that simulate physics. Okay, so just keep it project default and we are good to go. Now the ball, yeah, it's being scored. Let me rotate it a little bit so you can see. Okay, great. So now we have our swipe mechanism. Now let's do the scoring mechanic. Okay, Oh, I might have forgotten something. Yeah, so when the ball is launched, I can actually relaunch it again while it's in the air. But you see, I just clicked on the ball again. Yeah, it shouldn't happen. So to prevent this, we need to create a boolean here. Rule B is launched equal false. Okay, so here, mm, when we launch the ball, we need to set this boolean to true. So B is launched equal true. And here, when we begin touch with the ball, we need to check if it's not launched before we do anything. So if it's not launched, set this ball to be set the reference to this ball and do whatever. Okay, but if it's launched, nothing will happen. No, we shouldn't be able to launch it again from there. Yeah, I don't think we can. Yeah, it's working. Okay, great. Now we need to create the scoring system. So, okay, I'm back. So let's create our scoring system. So do how usually the basketball works? Well, scoring system in basketball works whenever, well, you get the ball inside this little circle here, whatever. Okay, so to do that in here, we need to create a very small collision here, and this will detect the ball. When it hits with it, it means it scored. Okay, let's go to our hoop class and create a U property and the defaults only. Category components. Let's create a static mesh for it because I want score collision because I want the score collision to be a cylinder. Okay, and since we are here, let's create a function void score overlap view primitive component overlapped component a actor browser actor view primitives. What else? Result. Okay, this will be responsible for whenever the ball overlaps with this will be called. Okay, here now let's create the score collision. So score collision equal create. Let's copy paste this actually. Let's call it score collision. Okay, now we need the collision, this score collision to be attached to the hoop and we need to set the collision for it to overlap everything. So profile name overlap all. Okay, and we need to bind the function for overlap. So one component begin overlap dot add dynamic on square overlap. Okay, now um, let's compile this. Now let's go to our hoop blueprint, and the score collision we want to show the engine content and search for cylinder, and we want this one, the one that has engine basic shapes as the path. Okay, so let's select it. Okay, and let's scale it down. So 0.001, or yeah, okay, and here too. And for this one, it's very long. So it's very long, you see. So we need to make it smaller. Okay, you see it, you saw here. Now here 0.001. Okay, it's very small. And for the location, so this is 0, 30, okay, this is not in the middle still. Okay, now it's in the middle. Okay, also perfect. So 35 and minus 26. And for the scaling, 0.001, 0.001, and 0. As you can see, it's this small dot here. It's enough. Where is it? No, I think it's too small. We need to make it bigger. So instead of 001, let's make it 01. 01, and here 001. Yeah, it's better now. Okay, so that's the final values. 35, 0, 35 minus 26 for the location, and for the scale, 0.01, 0.01, and 0.001. Now let's make it invisible, and let's hide it inside the game. Okay, and let's make sure the collision is overlap all, right? Now let's add something here that will tell us that the ball was scored. Okay, you are running this message. Hmm, let's see if it works. Yep, it says good. Okay, great. Now we need to add few stuff here, obviously. Um, First, we need to check if the other actor is only the ball. Only the ball is allowed to be overlapped here and increase score. Then we need to check if the ball was actually going down, not going up. So maybe what might happen is the ball will go from here inside this and go from the other side, right? And this is not allowed in basketball. It's only allowed to be scored from the top. Okay, so we will check if the ball was going down, and if everything is perfect, then the score will be increased. So to do that, do we have... No, we don't have the ball interface yet. So let's go and create an interface for the ball. Okay, let's call it ball interface. Okay, now here, let's create a function that returns the velocity of the ball. This will help us to know if the ball was going down or up. Okay, so get current ball velocity, make it constant 0. Mm, Here, let's implement the interface. Okay, and let's override it here. Maybe we can just make a case of return get velocity. And now in our game mode interface, we need to virtual void update score equals 0. Uh, in here, override, and we need in here an integer current score equals 0. Okay, so current score plus plus, and let's update debug. Let's print the current score for now because we don't have any UI. Okay, and we need a string uh, variable for the message, like so. So f string for message is equal to f string printf text score. Oh, sorry, score and the actual score. This one, current score. So current score. And here we need the score message. Now inside our hoop, we need to check if it's the ball by checking if the other actor has the interface, the ball interface. So if other actor, now we check if it implements the interface. Uh, AI ball interface equal to cast AI ball interface, and the cast object is the other actor. So if ball interface first let's get the variable path vector ball velocity equal to ball interface get current ball velocity. Now if the ball velocity dot z is smaller than 0, which means it's being decreased and it's going down. Okay, so if it's going down, and it was overlapped, so we scored, and which means we need to get a reference to the game mode interface. So let's go to our hoop header. Game mode interface, game mode interface. Okay, now here includes functions library and include the game mode interface. Game mode or yeah, game mode interface equal to u functions. So you see what I meant in the first tutorial by we will be using same code over and over again. Well, see how easy it is right now that we have created our functions library. We just call the function and that's all, instead of just getting the game mode interface every time. By doing this, we just do it here and we call the function. It's so much simpler. Now here, if game mode interface update score. Let's okay, so score is 1. Oh, okay, so the score will always be 1 now because we don't have a ball anymore. We are not spawning a ball. But I think that's it for this tutorial. Now the ball should be spawned, yeah, but we will do it in the next tutorial because this is already a long one. But everything is in place right now and is working as intended. Okay, so thanks for watching. If you have any questions, if something is not clear, just let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And hopefully I will see you in the next tutorial. Take care.